The year was 2087. Humanity had spread beyond Earth, with thriving colonies on Mars and Europa. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to push the boundaries of what humans could achieve in space. It was a time of hope and progress. Then, the Zalthori ships appeared. They came without warning, massive vessels that dwarfed the largest human spacecraft. They positioned themselves in orbit around Earth, Mars, and Jupiter. The world watched in stunned silence as the enormous ships hung in the sky like dark clouds. 3 days passed before they made contact. John Miller stood in the United Nations emergency chamber, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. At 58, the former general had seen many crises, but nothing like this. Screens around the room showed the alien delegates, tall, slender beings with iridescent skin and 4 arms. They called themselves the Zalthori Federation. "They want to speak with Earth's leaders immediately," said the communications officer. John nodded. "Put them through." The main screen flickered and a Zalthori appeared. Its voice was surprisingly smooth as it spoke through a translation device. "People of Earth, we have observed your civilization for some time. You have potential, but you are young. We offer you protection and guidance as part of our federation." World leaders exchanged nervous glances. Protection sounded good, but something in the alien's tone made John uneasy. "We thank you for your offer," John replied carefully. "Earth would be interested in peaceful relations and cultural exchange." The alien made a gesture that might have been amusement. "You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. We are informing you of your new status. You will join as a protected species or face consequences." The room erupted into whispers. John kept his face neutral despite the anger building inside him. "Perhaps we could discuss terms that would benefit both our peoples," he suggested. The alien's large eyes narrowed. "Your weapons are primitive. Your ships are slow. You have nothing to offer except resources and labor. These are our terms. Earth and its colonies will serve the Federation. In return, you will not be destroyed." The transmission ended abruptly. In the chaos that followed, different nations responded differently. Some wanted to fight, others wanted to surrender immediately. John argued for a middle path, appeared to comply while secretly preparing resistance. Lillian Guyen watched the global broadcast from her laboratory at MIT. The 32-year-old physicist had been working on experimental shield technology when the aliens arrived. Now she stared at energy readings from the alien ships that her sensors had captured. "This can't be right," she muttered, running the analysis again. The aliens' shield technology operated on principles she had just begun to theorize about. With trembling hands, she downloaded her findings to a secure drive. Meanwhile, beneath the Pacific Ocean, Captain Kevin Washington received the news in the underwater base where his vessel was hidden. The USS Defiance was the newest submarine in the fleet, equipped with experimental stealth technology. When the order came to stand down all military operations, Kevin made a difficult choice. "We're staying dark," he told his crew of 60. "Something tells me humanity might need us later." 2 weeks after first contact, world leaders gathered in Geneva. The Zalthori had demonstrated their power by effortlessly disabling Earth's satellite networks and defense systems. Fighting was not an option. John Miller, now acting as Earth's chief negotiator, stood before the alien representatives. His face was ashen as he prepared to sign the document that would officially make Earth a vassal state. "Before I sign," he said quietly, "I want assurances that no harm will come to Earth's people." The lead Zalthori, who called itself Supreme Commander Zex, made that same dismissive gesture. "You will find our rule fair, as long as humans prove useful and compliant. Sign." With a heavy hand, John signed the Treaty of Geneva. As he did, he whispered something so softly that only he could hear it. "This isn't over." The changes came. Quickly after that, Zalthori ships landed in major cities across Earth and established bases. They set up mining operations that tore through natural landscapes with terrifying efficiency. Humans were conscripted to work in these operations, processing resources that were shipped to unknown destinations beyond our solar system. Scientific research was restricted. Technologies that the Zalthori deemed potentially threatening were confiscated. Space travel was forbidden, except under alien supervision. 3 months after the surrender, Lily Nguyen was forced to work in a Zalthori research facility. They valued her brilliant mind but kept her under constant watch. Each night she returned to her small apartment exhausted, but she still found energy to continue her secret work. "If I can understand their shield frequencies," she whispered to herself as she worked on hidden calculations, "I might find a way to disrupt them." Across the country, ordinary people began to organize. Frank Carter, a 45-year-old former police officer from Detroit, started meeting with others in secret basement gatherings. "They think we're just going to accept this?" Frank asked the small group assembled before him. "They think humans will just bow down forever?" "What choice do we have?" someone asked. "Their weapons are too advanced." Frank smiled grimly. "Every oppressor in history has had better weapons than those they oppressed. But history also shows that determination can overcome technology." In Washington, D.C., now partly transformed by alien architecture, John Miller played his role as human liaison to the Zalthori. They believed he had accepted Earth's fate. They didn't notice how carefully he observed their routines, their weaknesses, their command structures. By the 6-month mark, the first human resistance cell successfully disrupted a Zalthori supply transport. The aliens responded by destroying a small town in Brazil. Their message was clear: resistance would be met with brutal force. But the message that spread among humans was different. From whispered conversations to encrypted digital messages, a simple truth circulated: the Zalthori could be hurt. When Diana Rodriguez, a 36-year-old doctor, saw the injured Zalthori brought into the medical facility where she was forced to work, she realized something important. "They bleed," she told her fellow medical staff. "They can die." As the first year under alien rule came to an end, Earth seemed fully subjugated. Zalthori patrols moved through cities. Human workers trudged to and from alien facilities. The resistance remained small and scattered, but beneath the surface things were changing. Peter Kim, a computer specialist, had found ways to tap into Zalthori communications. Kevin Washington's submarine quietly moved between hidden bases, transporting people and supplies. Lily Nguyen's research was yielding promising results, and John Miller, playing the cooperative servant by day, spent his nights coordinating a network that grew with each passing week. The Zalthori believed they had conquered Earth with minimal effort. They thought humans were weak, primitive, easily controlled. They had no idea what was coming. 5 years passed under Zalthori rule. Earth had changed in ways that broke the hearts of those old enough to remember freedom. Once green landscapes were now scarred by massive mining operations. Great cities had alien towers rising from their centers, dark structures that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. John Miller walked through what used to be Central Park in New York. At 63, his steps were slower now, his hair completely gray. To passing Zalthori patrols, he looked like just another broken human, an aging liaison who had accepted his place in the new order. They were wrong. John paused near an old oak tree, one of the few still standing, and casually dropped a small package into a hollow at its base. The drop complete, he continued his walk, his face betraying nothing. 10 minutes later, a young woman jogged past the same tree. She stopped to tie her shoe and retrieved the package in one smooth motion. Inside was a data chip with information that would save many lives. Across the ocean, in what was once called London, Lily Nguyen worked in the main Zalthori research facility. After 5 years, she had earned a small measure of trust from her alien supervisors. They allowed her limited access to their technology, believing her brilliant mind could help solve engineering problems. Lily kept her true breakthrough secret. Working at night in the tiny apartment she was allowed, she had finally understood the frequency patterns that controlled Zalthori shields. Better yet, she had designed a device that could disrupt them. "It works on small scale," she whispered to herself as she powered down her hidden prototype. "But we need to test it on something bigger." The opportunity came sooner than expected. That same night, her door crashed open, and Frank Carter stood there, breathing hard. "They're onto us," he said quickly. "Peter's monitoring system picked up our names on a Zalthori security transmission. We need to move now." Lily grabbed her device and the small bag she kept packed at all times. She had known this day might come. As they slipped out the back exit, 3 Zalthori patrol ships descended from the sky, bathing the street in harsh blue light. "We'll never make it," Lily said, watching the aliens deploy from their vehicles. Frank pulled out what looked like a modified human pistol. "Let's test that fancy device of yours." Lily activated her shield disruptor just as the first Zalthori fired. The alien weapon, normally powerful enough to vaporize concrete, sparked and fizzled. The confused aliens tried again with the same result. Frank's weapon, meanwhile, worked perfectly. The modified bullets passed through the now vulnerable aliens, dropping 3 of them before the others retreated to their ships. "It works," Lily whispered, her eyes wide with wonder and fear. Frank grinned. "Spread the word. Humanity just got its teeth back." News of the encounter spread through resistance networks across the globe. For the first time, humans had technology that could counter Zalthori advantages. Hope, so long suppressed, began to flicker again. The aliens responded with increased brutality. In Chicago, a resistance cell led by Frank was cornered after an operation to free human workers from a processing facility. When Frank and his team refused to surrender, the Zalthori commander ordered an orbital strike. 20 blocks of Chicago were reduced to ash in seconds. Thousands died, many with no connection to the resistance. The Zalthori broadcast images of the destruction worldwide as a warning. It had the opposite effect. Diana Rodriguez worked in a medical center in what was once Mexico City. The facility primarily served human workers injured in Zalthori mining operations. The day after the Chicago destruction, humans arrived for treatment with their faces hard and eyes burning with new resolve. "They went too far," an older man told Diana as she treated his burned arm. "My family wasn't even part of the resistance. Now my grandchildren are gone." Diana nodded silently. She had lost her brother in a similar punishment 2 years earlier. That night she attended her first resistance meeting. The meeting was held in an underground tunnel, a remnant of an old subway system. Peter Kim, now well known in resistance circles for his ability to hack Zalthori systems, addressed the crowd of 50 people. "We've intercepted communications confirming what we feared," he said, his voice grim. "The Zalthori aren't just here for our resources. They're conducting genetic experiments on humans in facilities across the globe." Shocked murmurs spread through the crowd. Diana stepped forward. "I've seen unusual injuries in my center," she confirmed. "Patients with surgical marks they don't remember receiving." "There's more," Peter continued. "We've decoded historical records from their ships. Other species who resisted Zalthori rule were completely wiped out. They consider resistance a genetic flaw, one they won't tolerate." A heavy silence fell over the group. Finally, someone asked the question on everyone's mind. "What do we do?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A communications device in the center of the room suddenly activated, projecting a familiar face. John Miller. "We fight back," he said simply. "But not like before. Not scattered actions that allow them to punish us separately. We now have Lily's technology, Peter's intelligence, and a growing network spanning the globe. It's time for something bigger," he explained. That resistance cells worldwide were now connected. Resources and people could move through hidden channels. And most importantly, Kevin Washington had made contact from his submarine base. "The USS Defiance never surrendered," John told them. "Kevin has been building weapons based on Lily's designs. They work. And he's not alone. There are other military assets that stayed hidden, waiting for this moment." On a screen behind John appeared plans for what he called Operation Thunderclap, a coordinated worldwide strike against Zalthori command centers. "We need time to prepare," John explained. 6 months, maybe more. "But when we move together. The Zalthori believe they broke us in Chicago. They believe we're weak. Let them think that while we gather our strength. The meeting ended with new assignments and a sense of purpose many hadn't felt in years. As Diana prepared to leave, Peter approached her. "We need medical personnel for the operation planning team," he said. "Your experience treating Zalthori could be invaluable." Diana thought of her brother, of her patients, of the ruined Chicago. "I'm in." Across Earth and even on Mars, similar meetings were happening in hidden places. The resistance was no longer just scattered acts of defiance. It was becoming an army. What the Zalthori didn't understand was that destroying Chicago had been their greatest mistake. They had shown humanity the worst they could do. In doing so, they had removed the most powerful weapon they had, fear of the unknown. Humans now knew exactly what they faced, and they were no longer afraid. 2 more years passed. The resistance movement, now known as Terra Nova, had grown stronger in the shadows. Small victories accumulated. Weapons based on Lily's shield-disrupting technology spread through hidden networks. Peter's hacking efforts gave humans eyes and ears within Zalthori systems. Most importantly, people had something they had lost for years: hope. John Miller stood on the deck of the USS Defiance, now hidden in an underwater cave system off the coast of Australia. The submarine had become the unofficial headquarters of Terra Nova. Kevin Washington had modified it extensively, using salvaged alien technology whenever possible. "Reports from all sectors are positive," Kevin said, handing John a data tablet. "We're almost ready." John nodded, studying the information. Operation Thunderclap was nearly prepared. In 6 more weeks, they would launch simultaneous attacks on 12 major Zalthori command centers. It would be humanity's first coordinated global strike against their oppressors. "Any word from our Mars cells?" John asked. "Yes, finally. They've successfully produced the disruptor weapons using local materials. They'll be ready to move when we give the signal." This was good news. The human colonies on Mars had suffered even more brutal treatment than Earth. Their participation would stretch Zalthori forces thin. But before John could respond further, Peter Kim burst into the room, his face pale. "We have a problem," he said. "A big one. The Zalthori just announced they're relocating 30% of Earth's population to off-world mining colonies." John's blood ran cold. "When?" "Processing begins next week. They're starting with major population centers." Kevin slammed his fist against the wall. "We're not ready yet." John closed his eyes briefly. 7 years of careful planning, and now, this. If they moved too soon, they might fail. If they waited, millions would be shipped to alien worlds as slaves. "Get everyone on secure channels," John ordered. "We need to decide if we accelerate Thunderclap." The next day, Diana Rodriguez watched with growing horror as Zalthori troops entered her medical facility in Mexico City. They carried lists of names and began separating patients and staff. "These will go to Zalthori Mining Colony 6, said the alien commander, gesturing to a group that included several children. Diana stepped forward. "Some of these patients are too ill to travel." The Zalthori turned its large eyes to her. "Your medical opinion is irrelevant. They will work, or they will be discarded." Diana bit back her response. Years of living under alien rule had taught her when to appear compliant. But as the aliens herded people toward transport ships, she slipped away to send an urgent message to resistance leaders. The message would never arrive. As Diana reached the hidden communication device, alarms sounded. Throughout the city, Zalthori security forces had discovered a resistance cell operating nearby. From her window, Diana watched as alien troops dragged people into the central plaza, men, women, and children. Among them was her daughter, Maya, just 16 years old. The Zalthori commander's voice boomed across the city. These humans were found passing messages for the resistance. Such behavior cannot be tolerated. Observe the consequence, Diana screamed as energy weapons fired. The execution was broadcast worldwide on all channels. The aliens wanted every human to see what happened to those who resisted. On the USS Defiance, John Miller watched the broadcast in stunned silence. Then he saw Diana in the crowd, collapsing as her daughter fell. Something broke inside him. 7 years of careful restraint, of strategic planning, of playing the long game. It all crumbled in that moment. "We move now," he said, his voice deadly calm. "Send the signal. Operation Thunderclap begins tonight." Across the globe, resistance cells received the coded message. The storm breaks at midnight. In her laboratory beneath London, Lily Nguyen worked frantically to finalize the last batch of shield disruptors. When the message came, she handed the weapons to waiting couriers. "Remember," she told them, "they only work at close range. You have to get within 50 meters of their ships or shields." Frank Carter assembled his team in the ruins of old Chicago. The destruction that had been meant to break them had instead become a symbol of their resolve. 200 fighters gathered, armed with both human and modified alien weapons. "Today we show them what happens when you push humans too far," Frank told his people. "Today we show them why you should fear us." Kevin Washington brought the USS Defiance out of hiding for the first time in 7 years. The submarine, now equipped with Lily's technology on a massive scale, rose from the ocean directly beneath a Zalthori patrol fleet. As night fell over different parts of the world, humanity launched its counterattack. In London, resistance fighters, led by Lily, attacked the main research facility. Their shield disruptors worked perfectly, rendering Zalthori weapons temporarily useless. For the first time, the aliens found themselves vulnerable to human attacks. In New York, Frank's team infiltrated the command tower that had been built over the ruins of the United Nations building. The fighting was fierce, but the element of surprise gave humans an early advantage. Diana Rodriguez, grief transforming her into a weapon, led a group that freed hundreds of people from transport ships in Mexico City. When a Zalthori commander confronted her, she showed no fear. "You took my daughter," she said simply, before using her disruptor and then a simple human pistol. The alien fell, shocked that a primitive weapon could harm it. The most dramatic moment came when John Miller hijacked the worldwide broadcast system. His face replaced the Zalthori propaganda on screens everywhere. "People of Earth," he said, his voice steady. "For 7 years we have endured, we have been patient. We have watched our world stripped of resources. Our people worked to death, our children murdered when we dared to speak out." As he spoke, scenes of resistance fighters battling across the globe appeared on split screens. The Zalthori thought we were weak because we chose peace first. They mistook our compassion for cowardice. They believed we would accept slavery forever. John's eyes burned with intensity. "Today we show them what happens when humanity finally snaps." The broadcast cut to Kevin Washington's submarine rising from the ocean, firing new weapons that tore through alien ships like paper. "Join us," John continued. "Wherever you are, however you can. This is our world." The response exceeded even the resistance's hopes. Ordinary citizens picked up whatever weapons they could find and attacked Zalthori patrols. Workers in alien facilities sabotaged equipment. Even those who couldn't fight directly helped by hiding resistance members or disrupting alien communications. By dawn, the first major Zalthori base had fallen, the command center in the Himalayas. Human fighters stood triumphant in its smoking ruins. It was just the beginning. The war had finally, truly begun. The Zalthori were stunned by the sudden and coordinated human attack. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they faced a species that refused to stay conquered. Their response was swift and brutal. 3 days after Operation Thunderclap began, massive Zalthori warships entered Earth's atmosphere. They positioned themselves above major resistance strongholds and opened fire. The city that was once Sydney was reduced to smoking ruins in minutes. Similar destruction fell on resistance bases in the Himalayas and the Andes Mountains. John Miller watched the devastation from the command center of the USS Defiance, now hidden in underwater caves near what used to be Hawaii. The submarine had taken heavy damage in its battle with the Zalthori patrol fleet but remained operational. "They're trying to scare us back into submission," Kevin Washington said, studying the satellite images. "Just like they did with Chicago." John shook his head. But it won't work this time. We've seen too much. We know what they're capable of. Frank Carter arrived at the command center, his face dirty and his arm bandaged. He had barely escaped New York when the Zalthori counterattack began. We lost the New York command tower, he reported grimly. But not before we got what we needed. He handed John a small data device. Complete schematics of their main command ship. Peter's team pulled it from their computers before we had to retreat. This was valuable information. The Zalthori command ship, a massive vessel twice the size of the largest human aircraft carrier, had arrived in Earth orbit after the initial attacks. From there, the alien leadership coordinated their counterattack. If we could hit that ship, Kevin said thoughtfully, it would throw their whole operation into chaos. Impossible, Frank replied. It's in orbit. We can't reach it. Lily Nguyen, who had been quietly working at a console in the corner, finally spoke up. Actually, we can. All eyes turned to her. In the days since Operation Thunderclap began, Lily had been working non-stop, analyzing data from the battles. She pulled up a diagram on the main screen. I've been studying how their ships communicate, she explained. They use a network that connects all their vessels, including the ones on Mars and Jupiter's moons. If we could feed a virus into that network, Peter Kim, who had arrived with Frank, immediately understood. We could disable their entire fleet at once. Exactly, Lily said. But we need direct access to one of their communication arrays. The biggest one is in Australia, Diana Rodriguez finished. She had joined the command team after leading successful raids on 3 Zalthori transport facilities. In the outback, I saw the plans when I was working in their medical facility. John studied the map. The Australian outback was now a vast Zalthori complex, with the communication array at its center. It was heavily guarded, especially after the attacks began. Even with our shield disruptors, a frontal assault would be suicide, Frank warned. Then we don't assault it, John said, a plan forming in his mind. We infiltrate it. The plan that emerged was dangerous but potentially devastating to the Zalthori. While the aliens focused on crushing resistant strongholds, a small team would infiltrate the communication array in Australia. There they would upload Peter's virus into the Zalthori network. At the same time, resistance fighters would launch coordinated attacks on the remaining ground bases to keep the aliens distracted. Even if the virus works, Kevin pointed out, the command ship will still be operational. They'll just reconnect their systems eventually. That's why we need to hit the command ship directly, John replied, while their systems are down. With what? Frank asked. We don't have anything that can reach orbit. John smiled grimly. Yes, we do. We have the Mars colony. For 7 years, the Mars colony had suffered under even harsher Zalthori rule than Earth. But they also had something valuable, access to Zalthori ships that regularly transported resources from Mars to the command ship. If they could capture one of these ships, they could deliver a devastating blow. The next week was a blur of preparation. Peter worked day and night to perfect his virus. Lily modified her shield disruptors to work at longer range. Diana trained teams in Zalthori medical techniques, knowledge that would be crucial for the infiltration. Frank and Kevin prepared for the ground assaults that would serve as diversions. John, meanwhile, made contact with the Mars resistance. The plan was set. In 3 days, they would launch what might be humanity's final stand. The night before the operation, John found Lily working alone in the makeshift lab. You should rest, he told her. Tomorrow will be the hardest day yet. Lily looked up from her work, her eyes tired but determined. Do you think we can win this? John considered the question carefully. I think we can hurt them badly enough that they'll have to reconsider whether Earth is worth the cost. That's not exactly winning, Lily observed. In a war like this, survival is winning, John replied. We just need to be too much trouble to keep. The day of the operation dawned, clear and bright. The infiltration team, led by Diana, moved through the Australian outback using captured Zalthori vehicles and uniforms. Frank's forces launched simultaneous attacks on bases in North America, creating the needed distraction. Diana's team reached the communication array without detection. Using Lily's technology and their own courage, they fought their way to the central control room. Peter's virus was uploaded, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, all across Earth, Zalthori ships began to fall from the sky. Their shields failed, their weapon systems crashed, their navigation controls froze. The virus had worked even better than expected. On Mars, the Resistance seized their moment. They captured a Zalthori transport ship and set course for the command ship, which was now vulnerable without its support fleet. John watched from the USS Defiance as reports flooded in. Humans were winning battles across the globe. The Zalthori, for all their advanced technology, had never faced an enemy who fought with such desperate determination. The Mars team has reached the command ship, Kevin reported. They've deployed Lily's largest shield disruptor. On screens around the world, humans watched as the massive Zalthori command ship suddenly lost power. Its lights flickered and died. In orbit, it began to drift. They did it, Frank whispered. They actually did it. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. Nearly half of Earth's major cities lay in ruins. Billions had died in the initial conquest and the years of harsh rule. Millions more had fallen in the fighting of the past weeks. Still, as John looked at the faces around him, tired, injured, but unbroken, he knew humanity had passed a test that few species ever faced. They had been conquered, and they had refused to stay that way. This isn't over, he warned his team, but we've shown them something they've never seen before. What's that? Diana asked. That taking our world has a price they might not be willing to pay. 3 months after the attack on the Zalthori command ship, Earth was a changed world. Cities lay in ruins. Farmland was scorched. The night sky looked different, filled with the drifting remains of alien vessels. But for the first time in years, humans walked freely. The Zalthori had withdrawn their remaining forces to Mars and Jupiter's moons. The sudden loss of their command ship and communication network had thrown their forces into disarray. Some alien units fought to the bitter end. Others retreated immediately. The Zalthori were not used to losing, and they had no protocol for defeat. John Miller stood on a hill overlooking the remains of Washington, D.C. At 65, the weight of the war showed in his face. He had led humanity through its darkest hour to an uncertain victory. Now came the hardest part, rebuilding. Beautiful view, said a voice behind him. Lily Nguyen joined him on the hillside. She looked older too, with new lines around her eyes and streaks of gray in her hair. I remember when there were monuments here, John said quietly. The Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, symbols of what humans could achieve. We'll build new ones, Lily assured him. Better ones. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Kevin Washington. The submarine captain had become the de facto leader of Earth's new defense forces. They're here, Kevin said simply. John nodded. The message had arrived a week earlier. A transmission from the Zalthori Federation requesting a meeting to discuss terms. Not surrender terms, but negotiation terms. For the first time, the aliens were treating humans as equals. The meeting took place in what remained of the United Nations building in Geneva. John, Lily, Kevin, Frank, Diana, and Peter represented humanity. The Zalthori sent 3 representatives, including one they called the High Counselor, a rank they had never revealed to humans before. The High Counselor spoke first. Its voice was different from the commanders humans had dealt with before, less harsh, more measured. We have existed for 50,000 of your years, it said. In that time, we have incorporated 326 species into our federation. None have ever done what humans have done. John kept his face neutral. And what is that? Forced us to reconsider our methods, the alien replied. You were supposed to be simple labor, a primitive species useful only for resource extraction. Instead, you destroyed our command ship and disabled our fleet. The human representatives exchanged glances. This was not what they had expected. What do you want? Frank asked bluntly. To understand, the High Counselor said. How did you do? Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your weapons are primitive. Your ships can barely leave your atmosphere. Yet you defeated our forces, Lily answered, her voice clear and confident. You made a fundamental error in your assessment of humans. You looked at our technology and decided we were weak. You never considered that strength comes in many forms. Explain, the alien demanded. Humans adapt, Diana said, thinking of all she had seen in the medical facilities. When pushed to our limits, we don't break. We change. We evolve. We also remember, Peter added, every slight, every harm, every injustice. We studied you while you thought we were just obedient servants. And we cooperate, Frank continued. You thought destroying Chicago would terrify us into submission. Instead, it united us against you. The High Counselor was silent for a long moment. Then it made a gesture the humans had never seen before, a slight lowering of all forearms. The Federation wishes to propose a new arrangement, it said finally. Not conquest, not subjugation. Alliance. John raised an eyebrow. Alliance? After everything you've done to our world? We can help you rebuild, the alien offered. Our technology can restore your environment, heal your injured, rebuild your cities in decades rather than centuries. At what cost? Kevin asked suspiciously. Knowledge, the High Counselor replied. Humans have shown qualities our Federation lacks: adaptability, determination, creativity in the face of overwhelming odds. These are valuable traits. The negotiations lasted for days. The Zalthori offered technology and assistance. The humans demanded independence, reparations, and guarantees that Earth would never again be threatened. Finally, a new treaty was signed. Not the Treaty of Geneva that had made Earth a vassal state, but the Earth-Zalthori Accord, recognizing humanity as a sovereign and equal species. As news of the accord spread across Earth and to the colonies on Mars and Europa, reactions were mixed. Many humans could not forgive the years of oppression and the billions of deaths. Others saw the practical benefits of alien technology for rebuilding. 1 year after the signing of the accord, John Miller stood on the same hill overlooking Washington, D.C. This time the view was different. Zalthori construction units, working under human supervision, were clearing rubble and laying foundations for new buildings. Does it bother you? Lily asked, joining him again. Working with them after everything? John considered the question. Sometimes. But I've seen enough war to know that peace, even an uneasy peace, is worth the compromise. Across the globe, similar scenes played out. Alien technology helped clean polluted waters and restore damaged soil. Human scientists worked alongside Zalthori engineers to rebuild infrastructure. The Mars colony, once a place of harsh labor, became a center for human Zalthori scientific cooperation. There were challenges. Some resistance fighters refused to lay down their weapons. Some Zalthori commanders could not accept the new reality. But slowly, over years, a new normal emerged. 5 years after the signing of the accord, humanity launched its first faster-than-light ship, built with Zalthori technology, but designed and commanded by humans. Captain Diana Rodriguez stood on the bridge looking out at the stars. Set course for Alpha Centauri, she ordered. Let's see what's out there. On Earth, at the newly rebuilt United Nations headquarters, John Miller was present for another historic moment. The High Counselor officially invited Earth to send a representative to join the Zalthori Federation Council, not as a subject species, but as an equal member. As John prepared to address the assembly, he thought about the long journey. From first contact to subjugation, from resistance to war, from victory to alliance. Humanity had paid a terrible price, but they had earned something: precious respect. 7 years ago, he began. Aliens came to our world believing we were weak. They judged us by our technology, by our weapons, by our apparent willingness to surrender. They learned, as others may learn in the future, a simple truth about humans. He paused, looking directly at the High Counselor. Never mistake our patience for weakness. Never confuse our compassion for cowardice. And never ever believe that humans will accept chains, no matter how strong you think they are. Across the galaxy, other species who had lived under Zalthori rule for generations heard about Earth's rebellion. They heard about the small, seemingly primitive species that had fought back and won. They began to wonder if perhaps they too had been patient long enough. The story of humanity's stand against the Zalthori spread from world to world, becoming legend. And the legends all ended the same way. Aliens thought we were weak, until humanity finally snapped.